Welcome back from the break. You're still watching NTV Sport Nights. Excitement, I should say, here in the studio. Isma, what were you doing in Moroto?
And Bossa.
Welcome back.
First of all, my first visit to Moroto. I was invited to attend the FUFA, the annual FUFA Ordinary Assembly. Something I've covered a lot of the time as a reporter. I actually used to think I'd be FUFA president one day as early as senior one.
By sitting there?
No, but
as early as senior one.
As early as senior one, because at the time I'd seen my uncle, Toa Kakaire, the late, around the game, and had followed, and always all I read about football's controversy. And I imagined my uncle wasn't doing the right thing, so maybe I'll do better. But I was 13.
Have you dropped the dream?
Not sure. It's now my passion. Administration is very hard, very, very difficult. So on Saturday, FUFA held their 99th Ordinary Assembly in Gulu. And I'm just going to list the highlights of what happened. Some hilarious, some useful, some not so useful. So when I was in Gulu last year for the last one. I've been to Masindi, I've been to Luwero, I've been to Popo, I've been to Silver Springs. I've covered very many of them, many of these FUFA assemblies. That's why I remember I came to a show one time, and I think in 2016 on this channel, and said, I'm very sure Moses Magogo will be unopposed for the election. And I got a bit of stick for that. For discouraging people from standing, and I think I did the same even in 2020, because I'd got a chance to interact with the people who vote him, who are not any of us on the show,
The delegates.
and understand how they think of him. So at that assembly, which was held in Moroto in the northeast, it was declared last year in Gulu that they would go to the northeast. Then eventually, I think the people who ran FUFA chose Moroto because many of the people had never been there. Actually, I realized most people who had traveled there for this event had never had a chance to travel to Gulu. So it was rather to Moroto. So it was a totally new place, very hot, largely arid, struggled a bit with the food. Ended up struggling with my stomach the entire weekend, but that's not a story I'm going to tell on television.
In Uganda.
Now, when the assembly starts, of course, attended by the minister, by the National Council Sports Chairman, Ambrose Tashovia, and then the General Secretary, Patrick Bernard-Oguel, presided over by the President of FUFA and the CEO, Edgar Watson. So they decide to give what they call the Golden Award to appreciate the efforts of people who have contributed towards the game. One of them is President Museveni. For the financing that the national team has got, especially to start from around 2016 when Uganda qualified for the AFCON for the first time in 39 years. Then, of course, the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Katara Museveni, also receiving an award. And for the same. And then the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among Magogo, also receiving an award for her contribution, and Parliament especially in ensuring that the sports law was passed and how Parliament has increased the budget. Those were some of the other highlights. Then there was a quite lengthy presentation, the things that would interest many people.
You've missed the First Lady.
I did.
Oh, you
I
did?
mentioned.
I liked why they awarded her.
Yeah.
For guidance and planning and attending the game that ended the 39 years.
39 years, yeah.
AFCON.
Yeah, that's why I told you, football administration and politics are they're intertwined. If you don't play the politics well, you never get the administration right. So then there was a very lengthy presentation. They've restructured a bit of what they are doing. You know, what there has been like a national teams committee, they've now set up a national technical teams committee, which is still under who they call the FUFA development officer. I know Clive wishes the development officer or someone different. Ali Mwebe.
You just made me
no. No, he's had you before, and he's very willing to explain. So he makes a presentation about the technical plan, because I think that bother many Ugandans, about what they want to do with training of coaches, with mass football, with so many other things around the technical plan, because Uganda has not had one. because what we do in training our coaches is an entirely what, for example, CAF has thrown at us. The CAF DCBA, the ones that Lawrence Mulina, the president of Vipers, describes as 1 week courses for coaches, and one of the reasons why he doesn't hire coaches. So that is supposed to be presented again to the executive committee to pass. So there were a bit of details in there. Luckily these days when you go to these assemblies, because I attended one way back more than 10 years ago at Popo when Lawrence Mulina was FUFA president. And there's a bit of contestation. What they've done over the past few years, maybe these are the things that Moses Magoga has learned with the administration, is that they send what they are going to discuss to the delegates months prior, and then demand that you send your responses in time, and they will be responded to at the assembly. So the thing about just standing up and talking is not, you could call it choreography. Yeah, it's a bit more choreographed. So that's one of the other things that has happened over the past few years. Now, in amending some of the things that were amending, there is a change to a FUFA electoral code, which many people have been extremely critical, which was passed in 2012 at Katomi Kingdom Resort, using a committee that had Lawrence Mulindwa, Moses Magogo, Mujib Kasule, Alex Luganda, Rogers Byamukama, and a few others. I think there were 7 in all, 7 or 9, if I remember the number correctly. Now that electoral code made it almost impossible for an outsider to become FUFA president or to contest for these positions, because you need to be part of the AFCON or a chairman of a member association of FUFA for 7 of the 10 years preceding the election. And that was the most controversial clause. Then you had to get signatures from 3 entities to stand for the presidency. One of them has to be a special interest group, which can be beach soccer, futsal, or one of the UPL clubs. Then you must get a signature from one of the regions. Yeah.
And schools?
Yeah, schools or coaches, they are also members. The third one, because you're supposed to get 3 signatures. Now, what they've done, you remember there was a contest, I think some people wrote to FIFA saying the rules are very unfair, and FIFA sent an official here some years back to talk to FUFA to see how they can change the electoral code. Now they've changed it. You only need 4 years preceding the election to be able to stand to become
but
FUFA
all
president.
the others
Well, the other things remain. You have to get signatures. You have to get signatures from members of the federation. So Mebo, who is not known within football circle, still cannot stand. But I always felt that 7 of the last 10 years preceding the election was extremely unfair. Extremely unfair.
But still, that clause, how does it
Let
rule
me
out?
finish.
How does it rule out Mujib Kasule?
It doesn't.
No, the
thing,
previous one, because
he couldn't get
he
the
never-
signatures.
his
He
issue was
couldn't-
always with the signature.
with the signatures, because he could get Vipers to sign for him or KCCA. He could get a special interest group to sign for him, but he could not get a region. A region, one of the region heads, because FUFA is run under regions. They have all these regions. You couldn't get that to sign for him. So now they're saying you need only 4 years as a FUFA EXCO member or as a member of an executive of a FUFA association. Previously, you had to be almost the head of the association to stand. Now, if you're a member of an EXCOM, of an association, let's say Andrew Mwangusha is a member of EXCOM of the Coaches Association, now you can stand for the election. I don't know whether this makes it easier or it makes it even harder, because the rules can be relaxed the same way the Public Order Management Act says you inform the police to provide you security. It sounds very...
If the whole Jiba cannot get someone from the delegates,
yeah, from the regions to sign for him.
Not that he could not, but it goes back to what Ismail said in his submission when he said that Moses Magogo would be FUFA president and discouraging people to stand against him because he had interacted and associated with the people who do the voting. So that can give you an insight why Mujib Kasule, it is very hard for him to get, for instance, a signature at regional level. For instance, the last election, I'm told,
which was
from the special interest group, they talked to the members of the beach soccer. From a verbal agreement, they agree to give him the signature, but when it is time to put pen to paper, they start going into zigzaga. They tried to talk to all regions, and all regions had endorsed Moses Magogo, and you cannot endorse more than one candidate. So there are so many things that pan out that eventually don't.
But you still have to be within.
Because I'm told at one time there was also, I think, money you are supposed to deposit on the FUFA account. This one, I don't know how true it is, that one of the club officials who has a good financial muscle gave him the money, and after giving him the money, because he's very good friends with Moses Magogo, then he calls Moses Magogo and he's like, so you have all those things. Somebody pretends to be wishing you well, yet in the actual sense they don't wish you well. Other people promise to stand by you. When it is time to put pen to paper, they start going into circles. So it has been extremely hard for him to actually get to get through the whole process of paperwork to eventually be eligible to stand.
So there is that one that will interest a lot of people in the public, the electoral code, and I've always encouraged people that before we even have a debate in opinion, let's have the facts. And this is what I'm giving is now the facts. Now also, FUFA also passed a budget of 37 billion shillings. Yeah, for the year, which is 2024. Their financial year does not exactly run the way the Ugandan one runs. It's a calendar year, and they're planning to spend 37 billion shillings. Wow. Of course, with that, they already have a deficit. You have a 17 billion from government, but now they must raise about 20 billion shillings from FIFA, from CAF, from sponsors. Very ambitious. And of course, I've been to assemblies where Moses Magogo has argued that they need to get, he thinks the turnaround he's looking for, they need to get about 90 billion shillings, a minimum, a threshold of 90 billion, that even if they needed to send players in some kind of training program, they can be able to sustain them, especially the under 17 and under 20. So they want to spend 37 billion shillings. So if you're there and you think you can give them money and you're a company, this is a place to start. Then there is spoken passionately about where the entire assembly, where FUFA has come from, because in that assembly, the theme was a decade of transformation, where FUFA was 10 years ago and where it is now. In things to do with governance and finance, are not qualified for the AFCON. Now they've qualified for 2, the number of national teams, the under 20, under 17, and the Crescent Cranes who have been to the WAFCON and all. Those are some of the things that were being sold, what has happened over the past 10 years. I'd love that maybe in another 10 years we're discussing something totally different, because what we talk about were the minimums. There's a time when going to the AFCON was it. Clearly it's not it. It's not the promised land. We want more. Maybe we're a bit like diminishing marginal utility in our economics, that when you achieve this level you want more, and then sometimes the satisfaction keeps going down. So those are some of the things that were there. I don't know what else I've missed, because I could not have.
What did the assembly say about PAMOJA? Excited, because there was a report presented by the minister how government is going to do the stuff they promised in the year PAMOJA bid. And then there was a vote of thanks, first of all, to the FUFA president himself, from the delegates, including Deo Mutabazi, who is the chairman of Beach Soccer. In 2016, when we were in Luwero, is the one who brought a proposal for Magogo to be a sole candidate. And he brought it again. What he did in 2016 is that they signed. This time they did not sign. Yeah, so he came and said because of PAMOJA, it was one of the things that was fronted, but the entire assembly was very excited about PAMOJA. And of course, the demands to government to deliver what it's supposed to do. And then the minister, Peter Gwang, saying government will do everything it promised, to ensure that PAMOJA actually, East Africa eventually does host the AFCON in 2027. That is a story I think we've discussed repeatedly, and is burning.
Just that thing of awarding the president, first lady, and the speaker. It's okay to appreciate people, very okay for what they do. But if we are now moving on to awarding public servants for doing their job as if they missed salaries, it's even funny when it is involving families. We wake up and it's so obvious and normal for people to dish out things here and there. It starts, of course, from the top, but you can see all the effects downward. I saw that tweet. It was hilarious, to be honest. Like, hilarious. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So, where would we be without them? I mean, it would be disastrous. And we need to thank them with the award. Actually, since PAMOJA was announced, this is the biggest news from Uganda. In Kenya, the news coming out is actionable. Actionable.
And Tanzania.
But in Uganda, there you go. A country of populism. Oh gosh, let's go.